The intricate gears of the small experimental robotic arm on Reginald Foster's sturdy outdoor workbench whirred softly. He was midway through a critical calibration sequence, his brow furrowed in concentration, a collection of highly specialized, custom machine tools laid out neatly beside him on a protective mat. This project, a compact automated pollinator designed to aid struggling bee populations, was his current passion. He'd just stepped inside his house for a moment to retrieve a specific multimeter when the jarring sound of angry voices and scraping metal shattered his focus. He rushed back out to his yard to an appalling sight. Mrs. Nancy Albright, the imperious and notoriously meddlesome president of the Oakhaven Meadows Homeowners Association, was standing over his workbench, directing two HOA-hired groundskeepers, who looked more like day laborer thugs, as they unceremoniously dumped his entire open toolbox, contents and all, into a large, filthy plastic bin. His precious, custom-calibrated tools, some irreplaceable, were being treated like garbage. "Stop! What on earth are you doing?" Reginald yelled, his voice a mixture of shock and disbelief as he saw a delicate set of micro-calipers hit the side of the bin with a sickening thud. "Those are my tools, my private property. You have no right to touch them." Nancy Albright turned, her face a mask of smug disdain. "Mr. Foster, is it? Your tools, as you call them, constitute abandoned personal effects, creating an unsightly nuisance and potential hazard, according to HOA Bylaw 27, subsection F. This junk yard you've created in your yard is a disgrace to Oakhaven Meadows. We've had numerous complaints from your neighbors about your messy, cluttered property." "Messy? Cluttered?" Reginald gestured to his otherwise immaculate yard and the neatly organized, until moments ago, workbench. "I was actively using these tools, Mrs. Albright. I stepped inside for less than 5 minutes. This is a dedicated workspace for a complex engineering project." "Engineering project?" Nancy scoffed, her eyes raking over the half-assembled robotic arm with contempt. "Looks more like you're building a scrap metal sculpture, or perhaps some kind of illegal distillery. Whatever it is, it's an eyesore, and this bothersome clutter of rusty old tools is being removed for community beautification." She then raised a megaphone, a device she seemed to cherish. "Attention, Oakhaven Meadows." Her amplified voice, sharp and self-righteous, echoed through the quiet streets. "Your diligent HOA is currently abating a significant public nuisance on Elm Street. The resident, Mr. Reginald Foster, has been found maintaining a hazardous and unsightly collection of junkyard materials and abandoned industrial scrap on his property, demonstrating a lazy and disrespectful attitude towards our community." Standards? Lazy? Disrespectful? Reginald, a man who held over 50 international patents for innovations in robotics and sustainable technology, a man whose inventions had generated billions in revenue and created thousands of jobs, felt a surge of cold, incredulous fury. Neighbors, drawn by Nancy's harangue, began to emerge from their homes, their faces a mixture of curiosity and a quickly kindled, HOA-fomented disapproval. "He really does just leave all that junk lying around, doesn't he?" one woman whispered, loudly to her husband, conveniently ignoring the fact that the junk was clearly part of an active project. "Nancy's absolutely right to clear it out," another man shouted from his porch, emboldened by the spectacle. "This isn't some backwoods garage. We have standards here. Take his trash away, Nancy." Someone then threw a crumpled soda can that landed near Reginald's workbench. "This is an outrage," Reginald finally managed, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Those are not rusty old tools. They are precision-calibrated instruments, some custom-made for my work. That toolbox alone is worth several $1,000s. You are committing theft and vandalism." "Theft?" Nancy cackled, clearly enjoying the confrontation. Her associate, a smirking woman named Mildred, was gleefully filming the entire scene on her smartphone, focusing on Reginald's distressed face and the HOA crew roughly handling his confiscated toolbox. "We are liberating this community from your unsightly mess, Mr. Foster. And as for vandalism, the only vandalism here is what you've done to the aesthetic integrity of Oakhaven Meadows." She then produced a pre-printed HOA citation. "And speaking of costs, Mr. Foster, this is your official notice of violation for maintaining a public nuisance, for improper storage of industrial materials, and for the cost incurred by this HOA. In abating said nuisance, you are hereby fined $200, payable immediately." She thrust the citation at him. "And be warned, if any more of your creative clutter appears in your yard, the fines will increase, and we will pursue all legal avenues to ensure your compliance, up to and including your eviction, $200. Eviction. For his priceless, irreplaceable tools, essential for his groundbreaking work on a robotic pollinator that could help save global agriculture. Reginald, a man whose mind constantly teemed with complex algorithms and innovative designs, was momentarily stunned by the sheer, unadulterated stupidity and malice of the woman standing before him. The video, titled Oak Haven HOA Heroes Tackle, Residents' Dangerous Junkyard, was, of course, posted online within the hour. It was a masterpiece of manipulative editing, portraying Reginald as an unhinged hoarder and Nancy as the calm, decisive leader protecting her community. The comments section was a predictable swamp of racist caricatures. "He's probably building a meth lab in his backyard." Classist slurs. "If he can't afford to keep his yard clean, he shouldn't live here." And gleeful support for Nancy's strong action. Reginald Foster, a celebrated inventor whose work was revolutionizing multiple industries, stood in his violated yard, his essential tools confiscated, his character defamed, his home threatened, all because a petty tyrant with a megaphone and a legion of ignorant followers disliked the sight of a man working with his hands. The injustice was a bitter, metallic taste in his mouth. But as he looked at Nancy Albright's smug, triumphant face, a different kind of inventive spark began to ignite within him, not for a new robot, but for a meticulously engineered, perfectly calibrated plan of legal and public retribution. She thought she had confiscated some messy junk. She had no idea she had just stolen the keys to her own spectacular downfall. The theft of his custom toolbox, a meticulously curated collection of specialized instruments representing years of inventive labor, was not merely an inconvenience for Reginald Foster. It was a crippling blow to his ongoing research and development of the Apis Assist robotic pollinator. While Nancy Albright was triumphantly posting on the Oak Haven Meadows HOA Facebook page about her decisive action to remove hazardous junk and enforce community tidiness, Reginald was on a series of urgent encrypted calls with his patent attorney and a specialized intellectual property litigation firm in Silicon Valley. They confiscated the entire Foster Mark III calibration kit, including the custom-tooled torque drivers and the micro-actuator diagnostic suite. His lead IP lawyer, a formidable woman named Evelyn Hayes, no relation to the judge in another story, but equally sharp, had exclaimed, her voice a mixture of disbelief and legal outrage, "Reginald, those aren't just tools. Those are proprietary, highly specialized instruments integral to your patented robotic systems. Their street value is significant, but their value to your ongoing R&D and intellectual property is incalculable. This isn't just petty HOA overreach. This is potential corporate espionage if they attempt to analyze or replicate them, and certainly grand theft and conversion of high-value assets." Their first official salvo was a cease and desist letter, so legally dense and financially threatening it should have given any sane HOA board immediate pause. It demanded the immediate, untouched return of all confiscated proprietary research and development equipment, itemized several of the key custom tools with their individual replacement costs, totaling well over $10,000, cited multiple federal and state statutes regarding theft of intellectual property and trade secrets, and warned of impending legal action seeking damages in the millions if the property was not returned within 24 hours in its original condition. Nancy Albright received this letter, scanned its intimidating legal jargon and staggering monetary figures, and promptly burst into derisive laughter. She waved it triumphantly at an emergency HOA Community Defense Against Frivolous Lawsuits meeting, attended by her usual sycophants and a few terrified board members. "Look at this, folks," she'd crowed, her voice dripping with scorn. The Lazy junk man from Elm Street, the one who can't even keep his yard tidy, is now claiming his rusty old toolbox is worth millions and full of secret inventions. He's clearly a desperate con artist trying to extort money from our hard-working community after we caught him red-handed with his illegal junkyard. He thinks these fancy lawyer letters from his scammer friends can scare us? We will not be bullied. In fact, she added, a malevolent glint in her eye, I think it's time we had that hazardous material, he calls tools professionally appraised, by a scrap metal dealer. And then perhaps we'll auction off the valuable pieces to cover his outstanding $200 fine and the cost of hauling away his other trash. Her community defense initiative quickly morphed into a campaign to publicly discredit Reginald and justify the permanent confiscation and potential destruction of his tools. The HOA website now featured an Exposing the Elm Street Hoax section, filled with anonymous, but clearly Nancy-authored testimonials from concerned neighbors about Reginald's suspicious tinkering, his strange mechanical contraptions hidden under tarps, certain the unsettling whirring and clicking noises emanating from his garage late at night, which was Reginald working on the software for his robotic arm, now severely hampered without his calibration tools. The online slander escalated. Commenters, egged on by Nancy's narrative, called Reginald a failed inventor trying to scam the HOA, a mad scientist building dangerous robots, or a common thief who probably stole those tools in the first place. The racist undertones were, as always, present and vile. How could a community be so easily swayed into demonizing a man whose quiet genius was dedicated to solving real-world problems? Reginald, meanwhile, was in a state of profound frustration. The Apis Assist project, which had shown incredible promise in early trials for aiding crop pollination in areas with declining bee populations, was now at a complete standstill. Many of the confiscated tools were custom fabricated for the project's unique micro-robotic components. They couldn't simply be bought off the shelf. He was forced to spend his days not inventing, but meticulously documenting his losses, working with his legal team, and trying to source or refabricate replacements, a process that would take months and cost a fortune he hadn't budgeted for. The hints of his true status as a prolific, highly successful inventor continued to be comically, tragically misinterpreted by Nancy and her chief informant, the ever-vigilant Mildred, who had now taken to sifting through Reginald's recycling bins, placed, as per HOA rules, at the curb for evidence. One morning, a courier delivered a thick, important-looking package to Reginald from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. It contained the official grant for his 51st patent, this one for a novel biomimetic actuator. Mildred, observing from her window with binoculars, saw the official USPTO return address and nearly had a fit. "Nancy! Nancy!" she reported breathlessly. "He's getting official government documents from the Patent and Trademark Office. He's probably a patent troll, or maybe he's trying to illegally patent some of our neighborhood's unique architectural features. This is a hostile corporate takeover attempt disguised as a messy yard." Nancy, whose understanding of intellectual property was nil, readily agreed. "A patent troll. I knew he was a shyster. He's trying to sue us all for our garden gnomes." Another time, Reginald was on a tense video conference call in his home office, the window slightly ajar. He was speaking with the CEO of a major agricultural technology corporation that was in advanced negotiations to license his Apis Assist technology for global deployment. "Yes, Mr. Harrison, the prototype's field trial data was exceeding all expectations before this unforeseen local setback with the primary toolkit. We project a potential 30% increase in crop yields. The licensing deal as it stands is for an initial $5 million, with significant royalties." Mildred, coincidentally deadheading her. Prize-winning and aggressively beige roses near Reginald's window caught snippets. Setback, toolkit, $5 million royalties. She rushed to Nancy. "He's talking about a toolkit and $5 million. He's definitely running some kind of high-stakes illegal gambling ring, Or maybe he's a jewel thief and that toolbox held his stolen diamonds. The royalties are probably his cut of the loot. Nancy was now utterly convinced that Reginald was not just a lazy slob, but a dangerous, high-rolling criminal mastermind. The thought that his junk tools might actually be valuable in some legitimate way never even crossed her mind. It was all part of his elaborate con. She felt a thrill of self-importance. She was the one who would bring him down. The HOA's lawyer, Skip Wilkins, who was rapidly accumulating a spectacular record of representing losing HOAs against secretly formidable individuals, was pressured by Nancy into sending Reginald a final notice of intent to dispose of abandoned hazardous property. It stated that if Reginald did not pay the now inflated $1,200 in fines, storage fees, and hazardous material assessment costs, and sign a complete waiver of liability within 48 hours, the HOA would permanently dispose of the confiscated items via certified industrial shredding and incineration to ensure community safety from unknown technological hazards. They were literally threatening to destroy his life's work. Reginald read this latest outrage with a cold, hard calm. This wasn't just about tools anymore. This was about the deliberate, malicious attempt to cripple a man's ability to create, to innovate, to contribute. Nancy Prentice wasn't just ignorant. She was actively hostile to the very idea of progress, unless it conformed to her narrow, beige vision of the world. He looked at the schematics for the APIS Assist on his screen. The intricate dance of gears and sensors designed to mimic the delicate work of a bee. He thought of the potential of this invention to help feed a hungry world. And then he thought of Nancy Albright and her plans for an industrial shredder. That evening, Nancy, in a fit of supreme arrogance and wanting to further humiliate Reginald, announced an HOA community safety briefing and contraband tool inventory to be held the next morning at the small, rarely used HOA office at the entrance to Willow Creek Meadows. She invited all residents to witness firsthand the dangerous and bizarre contents of Mr. Foster's confiscated toolbox of horrors before it was sent for final, safe disposal. She even hinted that she might auction off any non-hazardous scrap metal to benefit the HOA Flower Fund. Reginald saw the notice. A slow, dangerous smile, the smile of an inventor who has just solved a particularly complex equation, touched his lips. An inventory, a public display. How accommodating of her. He picked up his phone and made a call to Dr. Aris Thorne, his former PhD advisor and now the Dean of Engineering at a prestigious tech university, who also happened to be a board member of several of Reginald's tech companies. "Aris, my friend," Reginald said, his voice smooth as polished steel. "I believe there's an impromptu technology exhibition happening at my local HOA office tomorrow morning that you and a few of our colleagues from the robotics lab might find uniquely instructive, and perhaps bring a certified appraiser for advanced electromechanical devices. I have a feeling there's going to be a rather significant insurance claim to file. Oh, and Aris," he added, a glint in his eye, "tell the university's PR department they might want to send a crew. This could be a rather compelling human interest story on the challenges facing innovation in unexpected environments." Nancy Albright was planning to display junk. Reginald Foster was preparing to unveil a masterclass in inventive justice. The small, cluttered Oakhaven Meadows HOA office buzzed with a perverse sense of anticipation. Nancy Albright, looking every bit the self-appointed sheriff of suburbia, stood proudly beside Reginald Foster's confiscated toolbox, which was perched precariously on a folding table. Her nephew Kevin, looking both nervous and important, held a clipboard, ready to inventory the hazardous junk. A few of Nancy's most ardent supporters, including a gleefully filming Mildred and a reporter from the local Penny Saver newspaper, whom Nancy had personally invited to witness HOA justice in action, had gathered. "All right, folks," Nancy announced, her voice radiating smug authority. "As you know, your diligent HOA has taken decisive action to remove unsightly and potentially hazardous tool clutter from the property of Mr. Reginald Foster, who has repeatedly refused to comply with our community's tidiness standards. She gestured dramatically at the toolbox. Today, we will conduct a public inventory of this collection of questionable items before arranging for its safe and permanent disposal, unless, of course, she added with a sneer, Mr. Foster appears to claim his rusty relics and pay the outstanding fines, which now total a considerable sum. Just as Kevin was about to pry open the toolbox with a crowbar, a tool Nancy had provided ironically, the door to the tiny HOA office swung open. In walked Reginald Foster. He was not alone. Flanking him were three individuals who exuded an aura of quiet, formidable competence, a distinguished silver-haired gentleman, a sharp, impeccably dressed woman carrying a leather briefcase, and a younger man with a keen, intelligent gaze holding a specialized-looking instrument case. Nancy stared, momentarily flustered by this unexpected delegation. "Well, well, Foster," she scoffed, quickly recovering her aggressive demeanor. "Finally decided to crawl out and claim your assortment of antiquities? And who are these people? Your scrap metal appraisers?" Reginald stepped forward, his expression calm but unyielding. "Mrs. Albright," he began, his voice even and clear, cutting through her bluster, "before your nephew further damages my private property with that primitive implement, and before you compound your already significant legal liabilities, allow me to introduce my associates." He gestured to the silver-haired gentleman. "This is Dr. Eris Thorne, Dean of Engineering at the Kestrel Institute of Technology and a globally recognized expert in advanced robotics and mechatronics. He also happens to sit on the board of several of my technology companies." He then indicated the woman with the briefcase. "This is Ms. Evelyn Hayes, senior partner at Hayes, Carter & Voss, specializing in intellectual property litigation and corporate asset protection. She represents Foster Innovative Technologies." Finally, he nodded to the younger man. "And this is Mr. David Chen, a lead robotics engineer from my R&D lab, who is here with a portable, non-invasive diagnostic scanner to assess the condition of my confiscated equipment." A stunned silence fell over the small office. Nancy Albright's jaw sagged. Kevin froze, the crowbar halfway to the toolbox. Mildred lowered her phone slightly, her eyes wide. Even the penny saver reporter looked suddenly very interested. "The rusty old junk you so cavalierly confiscated from my active workshop, Mrs. Albright," Reginald continued, his voice like polished steel, "is in fact a custom-fabricated, precision-calibrated toolkit essential for the development, testing, and maintenance of advanced robotic prototypes, specifically my Apis Assist autonomous pollination drone project. This project," he added, "is currently under consideration for a multi-million-dollar grant from the National Science Foundation and has attracted significant interest from international agricultural conglomerates." He stepped towards the table. "For instance," he said, carefully opening his own toolbox, which his engineer, David, had now placed beside the HOA's confiscated one, and withdrawing a gleaming, intricate device that looked like something out of a science fiction film. "This is a Class 4 laser micro-alignment tool custom-built for calibrating the optical sensors on the Apis Assist drone. Its replacement cost is approximately $3,700. The toolbox you seized contains over 30 such specialized instruments, many of them irreplaceable one-off fabrications, with a conservative total replacement value well in excess of $10,000, not to mention the priceless intellectual property contained within the partially assembled prototype components you also had your men mishandle." He then produced a sheaf of documents from his briefcase, copies of several of his 52 granted U.S. and international patents. Dr. Eris Thorne then spoke, his voice carrying the weight of academic authority. "Mrs. Albright, Mr. Foster is not merely a tinkerer. He is one of the most innovative and respected independent inventors in the field of applied robotics. His work has significant scientific and commercial implications. The tools you have illegally confiscated are highly specialized, many of them unique to his patented designs. Any damage or loss to this equipment represents a serious setback to vital research and development." Ms. Hayes, the lawyer, stepped forward, her expression grim. "Mrs. Nancy Albright, and any attending members of the Oakhaven Meadows HOA board," she announced, as a uniformed process server who had entered silently with Reginald's team handed a thick legal document to a now visibly trembling Nancy. "You are hereby served with a federal lawsuit filed by Mr. Reginald Foster and Foster, Innovative Technologies. This suit seeks immediate injunctive relief for the return of all confiscated property and $5 million in compensatory and punitive damages for grand theft of proprietary equipment and trade secrets, conversion of property, defamation, slander per se, intentional interference with ongoing research and business contracts, and gross negligence resulting in damage to high-value, specialized instrumentation." Nancy stared at the legal papers in her hand as if they were a venomous snake. Her face had turned a ghastly shade of white. "$5 million?" she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. "Patents? Robotics? But it just looked like messy junk." "He's an inventor? A real one?" Mildred whispered, horrified, finally understanding. "Oh, Nancy, what have you done? You didn't just steal some old wrenches, you stole a genius's brain." Reginald Foster looked directly at Nancy Albright, whose arrogance had completely crumbled, replaced by a mask of abject terror. "Mrs. Albright," he said, his voice quiet but devastating, "creativity, innovation, the drive to build a better future, these are not messy junk. They are precious resources. You chose to meet my work not with curiosity, or even simple respect for private property, but with prejudice, contempt, and theft. You tried to crush ingenuity because it didn't fit your narrow, ignorant view of what a neighborhood should look like. Let this be a profound lesson to you. Justice, Mrs. Albright, always finds a way to protect and empower the inventive spirit. Now, I believe you have some very expensive, very important property of mine to return, untouched." The aftermath was a swift and humiliating implosion for Nancy Albright and the Oakhaven Meadows HOA. Faced with an army of high-powered lawyers, irrefutable evidence of the tool's value and purpose, and the looming threat of a financially ruinous federal lawsuit, a terrified Nancy and the chastened HOA board immediately returned Reginald's toolbox. David Chen's diagnostic scan, unfortunately, confirmed that several delicate instruments had indeed been damaged by rough handling and improper storage, a fact duly noted by Ms. Hayes for the ongoing damages claim. As per the terms of a quickly brokered preliminary settlement to avoid even greater legal catastrophe, Nancy Albright was forced to print a full, groveling retraction and public apology to Mr. Reginald Foster on the front page of the HOA website and on every physical community notice board in Oakhaven Meadows. The apology, detailing her profound misunderstanding and regrettable actions, was read with immense satisfaction and derision by the residents. Nancy was also overwhelmingly voted out as HOA president at an emergency meeting convened that very week, her local reputation in irreparable tatters. The HOA itself, to avoid complete bankruptcy from the still pending lawsuit, agreed to a significant financial settlement with Reginald, which he largely donated to STEM education programs for underserved youth. Reginald Foster, his essential tools recovered and damaged items meticulously repaired or replaced at the HOA's expense, quickly got his APIS Assist robotic pollinator project back on track. As a gesture of goodwill to the community and a final pointed lesson for Nancy, he later perfected and patented a fully automated AI-driven robotic lawn mowing system. He then donated one of these advanced mowers to the Oakhaven Meadows HOA for use on all community common areas, with a single, unalterable GPS exclusion zone, Nancy Albright's personal lawn, the final uniquely fitting scene, several weeks later. A disgraced and ostracized Nancy Albright, no longer HOA president, is miserably performing community service mandated by the new, far more reasonable HOA board, a desperate attempt on their part to show goodwill and mitigate further legal fallout from Reginald's lawsuit. Her task: she is responsible for manually cleaning and tidying all the neighborhood's common area flower beds and public walkways using a rusty old hoe and a cheap plastic trash picker. The very definition of messy junk tools. Some neighbors, including children, pass by, offering her pitying or slightly mischievous smiles. One calls out, "Working hard there, Nancy? Hope you're not leaving any creative clutter around?" She flinches, her face burning with shame. In the background, Reginald Foster's sleek, silent, AI-powered robotic lawnmower glides effortlessly across the common green, leaving a perfectly manicured carpet of grass in its wake. It has a small, customizable LED display on its side. As it passes by the toiling Nancy, the display briefly flashes a message, visible to all. Inventive justice. Reginald, perhaps observing from his porch with a cup of coffee, allows himself a small, satisfied smile. His voiceover, calm and thoughtful. Ideas are the true engines of progress. The tools that bring those ideas to life are extensions of the inventive spirit. To steal a person's tools, to mock their vision, is to attempt to steal the future. But innovation, like justice, has an unstoppable momentum. It finds a way. It creates its own solutions. The camera focuses on the inventive justice display on the robot as it continues its perfect work, then perhaps on a newly placed, very discreet but elegant sign by Reginald's, now pristine and even more secure, workshop area. Foster Innovative. HOA Technologies. Quietly engineering tomorrow. The imagined audience would erupt in cheers. That's what you call a high-tech takedown. Nancy got automated out of her misery and into a new one. The inventor always holds the patent on payback. Justice in this case was not just served, it was brilliantly engineered.